Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I joined this debate here today understanding, as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago and an elected member, the responsibility and the privilege in serving as the Minister of National Security. But today, I focus more as a citizen who has serious concerns about the state of crime and what we face in Trinidad and Tobago. Because you see, after all the posturing, the theatrics, the jockeying, the screaming, the shouting, we face the reality. The first thing I'd like to start off with, Madam Speaker, is reminding the population, through you, that the current Anti-Gang Act expires at the end of this month. So when we are questioned as to why we are here and why this should occupy the debate this afternoon in the legislative agenda, the simple answer is that the current legislation expires in a few days, and we are required as parliamentarians to reflect and to take a decision as to whether this important piece of legislation continues on the books or not. And I quickly remind the population again, should it be forgotten, that the Anti-Gang Act first came into being under a UNC administration in 2011. And furthermore, a PNM opposition at the time offered its full support for the legislation. So to continuously take the population through the trauma of having to understand why parliamentarians are not doing what is right for the country, let the contextual background be put in place. The population are the ones who in 2018 demanded, and it is there, the fact is there, and it is the truth. It is the population that demanded that the current Anti-Gang Act be brought back to Parliament to be debated. The UNC opposition at the time had to capitulate because the population called for it. And the first thing they had to do was agree to a bridging of time and the standing orders to permit this to become legislation. So with that contextual background, after all of the grand charging, I state that gang activity is unfortunately a global phenomenon, Madam Speaker. Every country suffers the scourge and effects of gang activity. The United States, in all of their major cities, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and many others, the United Kingdom, all European countries, Central and South America, and all of the countries there, India. There is not a country in the world that does not have illegal gang activity. Secondly, Madam Speaker, there is no single piece of legislation that would eradicate the scourge of gang activity. Not a single piece of legislation will eradicate the scourge, but is that a reason not to support it? Because the legislation is a tool, it's a pillar, an asset to be used by law enforcement in the fight against crime. And I'd like at this stage to read into the record what the police service has said about the anti-gang legislation. Not what we, the politicians, have said, but what the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the body constitutionally charged with the responsibility to protect and serve, have said about this anti-gang legislation. And this is all to the Commissioner of Police. First, by the head of legal services in the police service. The recommendation to the Commissioner of Police. It is suggested that the sunset provision contained within the Anti-Gang Act 2018 should be removed, and the Act allowed to fulfill the intentions of Parliament, as there is no other legislation capable of capturing the offences contained within the Act. That is what the Chief Legal Officer in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has said. So he's not even asking for a sunset clause. He is saying make this the legislation permanently on the books to deal with anti-gang behavior and gang and criminality. Quickly followed by an assistant commissioner of police in charge of white-collar crime to the commissioner of police. The Anti-Gang Act number 1 of 2018, in my respectful view, is a great piece of legislation that assists the police in crime fighting. Fact. Then, by the SIU, the Special Investigation Unit in the police service, who deal with the fight against the gangs in Trinidad. Currently, and this is an important point, Madam Speaker, and let the population hear it clearly today. Currently, this is the police service. There are several ongoing gang investigations being conducted, and they name the units in the police who are conducting these investigations. However, the success of these ongoing gang investigations requires the continuity of the Act so that the evidential threshold could be met to facilitate the arrests, charges, and the prosecutions of persons in the pursuit of law and order, again, in black and white by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Madam Speaker, this Act was proclaimed in 2018, and for the past 30 months, I can assure the population that the Anti-Gang Act has been used by law enforcement to deal with illegal gang activity in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'd like to use this as the point to remind the population, exactly as the police just said, about the specifics of this legislation and why this legislation is unique and should stay on the books of laws of Trinidad and Tobago to deal with the scourge of gang activity and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. Because today, all we're seeking to do is continue it for the next 30 months. And this particular bill, this unique piece of legislation, specifically designed to deal with criminal gang activity, has the following unique and important features, Madam Speaker. At Section 7 of the Act, to coerce or to encourage gang membership is an offense, a specific offense targeted at the continued recruitment of persons. Will it stop recruitment? No. But what it does now is provides a special tool in that fight. Also, retaliatory action. So in other words, you can now charge persons specifically for retaliating gang against gang. It goes on at Section 9. Counseling a gang member is a specific offense. Section 10. Preventing a gang member from leaving a gang is a specific offense. Which parliamentarian would want to prevent a specific offense of anyone wanting to leave a gang being prevented and that person being charged, a person who is trying to discourage a person? Will it solve everything? The answer is no. It is a tool. It is a tool to be used in the fight against criminality. Section 11, an important section. A person who uses a bulletproof vest, firearm, ammunition, prohibited weapon, or has in his possession a bulletproof vest, firearm, ammunition, or prohibited weapon which he ought reasonably to know would be used in the commission of gang-related activity commits an offense. So again, targeting the gang activity we all know exists in Trinidad and Tobago. Section 12, harboring a gang member. So to harbor a gang member is a criminal offense under the legislation. What we're looking to do is continue this specific, unique legislation for the Trinidad and Tobago law enforcement officers, the police service, to fight the scourge of gang and criminal gang activity. Concealing a gang member is made a crime. Recruiting a gang member is made a crime. Tipping off. So if you tip off persons that the police are about to tackle a gang or to raid a gang, it's made a crime. We then move very importantly, because you see, Madam Speaker, these are the unique features of the anti-gang legislation. But I'd like to remind the persons, in particular my colleagues on both sides, it is not only about charging persons. So I heard the goalpost move today. Oh, you may have arrested and charged persons, but are there convictions? In 30 months of conducting important gang and criminal investigations, are there convictions? So the test is, now are there convictions? In 1 minute you're screaming. In 1 minute you're screaming about this is targeting certain people. And the dog whistling went on. The dog whistling went on. But that is for Trinidad and Tobago to judge. We are here for this specific legislation. And the point I'm making, Madam Speaker, it is not only about charging persons with offences under this Act. This Act also provides very useful tools in the combating of criminal activity that they don't have elsewhere. And that starts at Part 3 of the Act, powers of police officers. Police are given very different powers of entry, search, and arrest under this legislation to target gang activity. Section 17, one of the most important pieces one of the most important clauses in this legislation, one of the most unique features, detention orders. Detention orders are being used by the police service numerous occasions. And what this allows the police to do under this important act when they're tackling gangs is to detain persons to go to court for beyond that 48 or 72-hour period to a judge, and the judge says you can hold them for a further 14 days. What are the benefits of that have been utilized by the police service under Section 17 of this very peculiar piece of legislation, but necessary? It allows police to disrupt gang activity. They've prevented many murders. They've prevented other crimes related with gang activities using detention orders, but also it allows them some time to build evidence against individuals. And I'll come very briefly and very shortly to how it has been used. Those are the important points of this legislation. Those are the unique features of this legislation. These are the tools and the pillars and the assets being used by law enforcement to tackle the scourge of gang activity. Has it been used? The answer is yes. But I'd like to stop because I remind the population in 2018, members opposite, and in particular, the Honourable Member for Siparia, they raised concerns. They said, listen, we are concerned about this legislation. They said it may trample on persons' rights. They said it may be open to abuse. They cautioned that this legislation was so unique, forgetting it was in place since 2011, that they did not want to affect persons' constitutional rights. I stand here today to place on the Hansard, Madam Speaker, that from 2018, when it was proclaimed, to now, there has not been a single complaint of abuse with respect to this legislation. Not a single complaint of abuse, trampling of rights of anyone under the anti-gang legislation. So that goalpost has now been eradicated. You can't come with that anymore. Don't say I'm concerned about persons' rights, etc. You're entitled to be concerned. But the fact is that it was not abused. Statistically, persons have been charged since 2018 with assisting a gang, being a gang leader, being a member of a gang, counseling a gang, gang leader and member benefits, giving to a gang, knowingly providing support to a gang, providing instructions to a gang leader, providing support to a gang leader, retaliatory action, retaliations and actions against a member of a gang, supporting a gang and a gang leader. Those are the main ones I've pulled out. Since 2018, persons have been arrested and charged under this legislation. As you heard the Honourable Attorney General say, each division has been targeting the gangs in their area, and they've been doing so successfully. This morning, last night into this morning, over the last 24 hours, a major gang leader of a gang called the Six Gang in Trinidad and Tobago was arrested and charged under this legislation. You're asking about what goes on? The Commissioner of Police yesterday, Madam Speaker, I saw it being reported, 51 officers were given awards by the Commissioner of Police for the work they did under the anti-gang legislation. The Commissioner of Police this week called upon all of us as parliamentarians to continue giving the tool of the Anti-Gang Act to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So you see, screaming and dog whistling and trying to distract does not take away the fact that there is a gang problem in every country of the world. And we are here as parliamentarians to protect Trinidad and Tobago. And that is why I am saying respectfully, and I'm pleading with all of my colleagues in the House, do what is right for Trinidad and Tobago. Do what it is that the police service, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, is asking us as legislators to do, which is to continue with the anti-gang legislation. And I will put on record, if I had my way, I would follow what the police asked for and get rid of the sunset clause and just put this permanently on the books. There has been work ongoing with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the intelligence. They have been doing what needs to be done, working as multi-agencies. Each division has been tackling gangs and gang activity. They have prevented certain criminal acts, including murder, from being carried out using this anti-gang legislation. The record reflects that a number of gang leaders, persons accused of being gang leaders in Trinidad and Tobago, have been targeted, have been charged, have been disrupted, specifically using the Anti-Gang Act. So you see, Madam Speaker, I've been following it closely, and I've been listening. And in the public domain, including from my friends on the other side, as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and as a person currently charged with the responsibility of being the Minister of National Security, I can say without fear of contradiction that I have not heard a single justifiable reason as to why this legislation shouldn't be continued, especially in light of what I so carefully read into the Hansard this afternoon, in the short period of time that I had to contribute to this important piece of legislation, that our Trinidad and Tobago Police Service have said it is good legislation, they are using the legislation, they wish that there was no more sunset clause to the legislation, and that most importantly, in my view, currently there are several ongoing gang investigations being conducted by, and they name the two units in the police service. However, the success of these ongoing gang investigations requires a continuity of this act so that the evidential threshold could be met to facilitate the arrests, charges, and prosecution of persons in pursuit of law and order. That is the best possible reason from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to us as parliamentarians here today as to why this legislation should be continued. And with those few words, Madam Speaker, I ask my colleagues today to continue this legislation. Unfortunately, in my view, for only the next 30 months, but necessarily so, because the police service have used the act, there has been no abuse of the act, and they want to continue using the act. And I caution and tell the population that if it is not supported by the opposition, understand what the police have just told us, that a number of ongoing criminal investigations will fall through, and they will not be able to take the fight to target the gangs in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.